Alright, so I'm going to see Logan tonight, and what can I say? I mean, I'm honestly kind of really stoked for this one. This was one of the movies that I was really looking forward to this year. Mostly because it's Hugh Jackman's last time playing Wolverine. It's also Patrick Stewart's last time playing Professor X, so I really hope they kind of go out with a bang. I really hope that this is their big epic swan song, and it certainly looks like it. It certainly looks like it'll be hands down probably one of the best Wolverine movies made so far, which honestly isn't that big of a feat. I mean, the last two movies are kind of lame. I really liked the second one. I did like the second one up until the last 30 minutes. That first one though is a big piece of shit. I think Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, he's not a completely accurate portrayal of the character. In the comic books, Wolverine's this kind of short, bulky dude, kind of like a Tom Hardy in a sense. He cares about the character a lot. He's definitely very passionate about the role, and his passion shows, even in a shitty movie like Wolverine Origins. You can tell that he put a lot of work into that, and especially when it comes to his body. He gets friggin' huge in those movies. I think the Wolverine where he's in Japan, that one in particular, Hugh Jackman is a huge Jack man. I mean, he's got muscles the size of my head and veins bulging out, and that takes a lot of time and effort, so kudos for him. This movie is loosely based off of Old Man Logan, which is probably one of my favorite Wolverine stories, if not my favorite Wolverine story. The comic books take place in a post-apocalyptic future where the supervillains have taken over. Now, obviously, they don't have the rights to, the Red Skull or the Incredible Hulk, so it's not going to be a complete adaptation. But it looks like they kept the post-apocalyptic kind of era, and it'll be interesting to kind of see how this universe plays out, because it's obviously not going to be a direct adaptation of the comic books. It's just kind of inspired by that story. So yeah, that's kind of my initial thoughts going in. Hopefully this movie lives up to the high expectations that I have for it, and I'll see you when it comes out.
I will make you hurt. I will keep myself. I would find a way. Logan.
Whew. Okay, so I just got out of seeing Logan, and this review is going to be a little bit different, and probably a little bit more organized than the last two reviews, because this time, I took notes. Let's talk about casting first. First of all, Hugh Jackman, I wrote that this is Hugh's meatiest performance yet, and honestly his best performance as Wolverine. There's a lot of times in the film where he's called to do something I've never really seen in a Wolverine film. Like cry. You don't really think Wolverine as a character is as a character who would cry. But in this film, he does. There's this great tearjerker of a scene near the end. And I'll admit, it got me there. It got me there. If he's gonna go out, this is probably the best film to go out on. It's like I said, it's his meatiest performance. It's his best performance as Wolverine. So, you know what? I'm glad he's ending out on a high note. Good job, Hugh Jackman. You kicked ass. You kicked all kinds of ass in this movie. This is also Patrick Stewart's final role as Professor X. He's a kind of a tragic character in this because his powers are failing him and he's causing a lot of harm to people. It was interesting to see that. It was interesting to see a Professor Xavier who's not competent, because you're so used to seeing him in the other films as kind of the intelligent, I've got my shit together mutant. But in this, he's actually very vulnerable. And I like that. I like that a lot. I think this is probably Patrick Stewart's best performance to end out on. X-23. If there was an actor who could potentially steal the movie from Hugh Jackman and Patrick Stewart, it's this girl. Oh my god. What a great performance. She's kind of played off as this feral child, and a lot of her performance is is showcased through her face and through various grunts and growls. And it works really well because this is a girl who was raised in captivity. She doesn't know human interactions, and that comes across very well with her performance. Give this girl her own movie. I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to make it so that she will carry on the Wolverine legacy. That's at least what they're hinting at in this film. It's like, now that Hugh Jackman's not around, oh, if we need a character that has a healing factor and pops claws, we have X-23. And by all means, if this actress is on board, let her do it. I want her to be in the X-Force movie. I want her to have her own movie. It's such a great performance, and such a great performance from such a young talent too. I don't know how old she is in this movie, but this is some good stuff. This is some great stuff here. Much better Caliban. And for those who don't know, Caliban was actually already in an X-Men movie. He was in X-Men Apocalypse. He had this brief little role. I like this Caliban a lot better than that version. The first thing I wrote was, best opening ever. It looks like they put the post-credit scene at the beginning of the movie, and this post-credit scene, I don't want to spoil it, obviously, but let's just say you'd be a dead fool to miss out on this. One of the things that I wrote down here was that in this movie, Logan is not a pacifist. They changed that from the comic book version. In the comic book, he was a pacifist. He actually, mild spoilers for the comics who haven't read it, but he was brainwashed by Mysterio into accidentally killing all the X-Men. And ever since then, he vowed never to pop his claws. I was kind of hoping that they'd go that route, because that's a very interesting route. This man who knows nothing but fighting, giving up fighting. He's giving up essentially who he is. Logan in this is, he's not a pacifist. They went with an alcoholic route, which is honestly a little cliche. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little disappointed that they didn't go that route. I mean, obviously they're not gonna adapt the comic 100%, but that's one of the main character arcs from the comics. They totally could have done it. There's nothing preventing them. It's not like a rights issue or anything. So that's kind of a missed opportunity. One of the other things I noticed was it's not a post-apocalyptic movie, which the comic books it was a post-apocalyptic world where the villains took over. In this one, it kind of is a post-apocalyptic world, but it kind of isn't. Basically, it's a post-apocalyptic film, but not for humans. It's kind of interesting to see a film where, for mutants, they're dying off, and there's not very many of them around, but society is still functioning. There's still people with jobs. There's still, the buildings look fine. It's not like decaying, or like, society is still fine. Human beings are still thriving. It's just the mutants that are going away. That's very interesting. I never would have actually thought to do that. I would have thought like, oh, if the mutants are gone, then the humans are gone as well. But no. The main kind of conflict in this film is Professor X and Logan being surrogate parents. And I know that sounds really weird, but that's kind of what the whole drama stems from. It's like you have Professor X, who's kind of this optimist, and you have Logan, who's this pessimist. And then you have this little girl who's stuck in the middle. And it's all about them kind of figuring out a way to do what's best for her. They're essentially being surrogate parents. And that's a very fascinating character-driven conflict. And that's one of the things that this movie does really well, is it's not so much about action, it's not so much about spectacle, it's about character. It's about these characters' journey. It's about them evolving as a person. And that's essentially what Wolverine does throughout the film, is he starts off as this kind of pessimist, and then he learns at the very end to basically inspire hope in all these children. Oh, I wrote goddamn adamantium bullets. For those who don't know, this is a mild spoiler. Obviously, when it comes to this review, I'm gonna do a little bit of spoilers, but I'm gonna try and keep it as vague as possible. That way, I'm not ruining the effect or ruining the movie for you. But the adamantium bullet comes back. One of the stupidest things from the first Wolverine movie makes a return. And honestly, it is handled a little bit better in this film. It's a lot more important to this film. It doesn't really just come out of nowhere, but it's still a bad reminder. When I saw it, I actually had like this kind of like post-traumatic stress flashback of just like Baraka Pool and adamantium bullet and oh god. Oh, if there's one movie you do not want to remind me of, it's Wolverine Origins. Oh, whew. If this movie had any flaw, it's the bad guys. It's a very small flaw, but I wrote that there's 3 bad guys in this film, and only 2 of them are actually any good. And really, one of them is not that great of a character, but he's a good idea. Again, I'm trying not to spoil it for you viewers, but basically, you have these 3 villains. You have the guy who runs the program, you have his lackey, and then you have, like, the lackey's lackey. And it feels kind of superfluous for that guy in the middle. They might as well have just combined that, the guy who runs the program and his lackey into one character, and then have the lackey's lackey be the lackey. Does that make any sense? Again, I'm trying not to spoil this, but the ending. I both really liked and really disliked this ending. I liked it because I think it's a great send-off to Hugh Jackman and the Wolverine character. I disliked it because something happens at the very end. Let's just say that one of the bad guys is killed off at the end of the movie, but it's not Wolverine who does it. And I think it should have been him, because it would have brought his character arc a little bit more full circle. The entire conflict of the movie is kind of Wolverine learning to be a father to this little girl. And he's very resistant to it. He's like, I don't want anything to do with this girl. I don't know how to be a father. I'm no good at this. It would have been a lot better if he was the one that killed the bad guy to save the girl, rather than the girl saving herself. Because that would have at least promoted the fact that he has accepted her as his daughter, essentially. So that's pretty much everything I wrote. Long story short, I really like the movie. It's not a perfect movie, but it's probably the best Wolverine movie so far. And that's exactly what I wanted this film to be. I wasn't expecting it to be perfect, but it was at least competently made from beginning to end, unlike the other ones. So that's my first impressions of Logan. I really like the film. Should you go see it in theaters? Absolutely. I think it's worth the price of an admission ticket. So anyway, that's all I have to say. If you like this video, hit that like button. If you want to see some more reviews, please subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next film.